Thanks to Andres, because he was the first to change the course of this Congress. And he was the first one who was not a biologist. And I will continue this by having a look at slime molds from a perspective of folkloristics or folk belief. So I will not try to understand what slime molds are. I will try to understand what people think they are. And that's a big difference. Yes, this is mine. So, okay, should I hold this one? Yes. Okay. So I'm quite sure that almost all of you are aware of some vernacular names of slime molds, at least witch's butter and dog's vomit. These are some of the possibly best known ones. And I'm quite sure the things I'm going to talk about, they are quite similar, at least in Northern European context, because legends and beliefs are, as we say, migratory, just like the spores of slime molds. So you will possibly realize that you have already heard something like this in your own countries. But I will tell about Latvian folk beliefs related to slime molds. So witch's vomit, spittle, and butter. It is 1872 when the name of a slime mold, which in Latvian is raganas vēmeklis, or witch's vomit. That's our vernacular name for several kinds of creatures. So this is the first time when this name has been included in vocabulary. So it is 1872, although 1638 is the year when the name of the witch appears for the first time in a dictionary. So some 200 years later, the vomit of a witch appears in a dictionary. And as this Lettisches Wörterbuch, or Latvian German dictionary, says that witch's vomit is something like butter-like, yellow-colored schwamm, some sponge, or how to call it, that can be found on, yeah. Okay, this, yes, it could be, but it is found on the walls of the houses and on the trees and on the earth and so on. So this is the first explanation of witch's vomit that we find, and some years later, already in not some years later, but some years before, actually some decades before, the first folklore text about witch's vomit was written down, and it tells that witches used to steal milk, and when they have stolen too much, they have to vomit part of it so that they release the milk, and it can be seen in the form of a witch's vomit. So after 1832, especially at the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century, we have recorded quite a lot of stories about witch's vomit, witch's spittle, and witch's butter. In what I didn't tell about myself, my professional interest is witchcraft, medieval witchcraft, early modern witchcraft, and also from the point of view of history and folkloristics. So my last postdoctoral project was based on a text corpus of 2,000 legends, And it was interesting for me to make some statistics about how many legends are there on witches' vomit in this text corpus, and it appeared to be some 140 texts, and it is about 7% of all texts I have, and these are legends, memorats, and folk beliefs. So if we look at vernacular names or the vernacular classification in this text corpus, you'll see that the most popular designation for these substances is witch's vomit, and then the spittle is the next one, then shit is actually the third, witch's shit is the third most popular, and then the witch's butter you see, which we have in the name of the genera, fuligo. We have the official name in Latvian for it, translated as witch's butter. It's actually quite scarce. And also some poor fungus, like raganopiepe, which is poor fungus, or Raganas piens, which is milk, and which is blood, also has been documented in relation to these strange substances in Latvian folklore. So if we talk about witches themselves, we have like 3 traditions of witches in Latvia, like Ragana, Laime, and Spīgana. Ragana is actually common Baltic. It means it is found in Latvia and Lithuania. Laime, it is only a tradition of one part, western part of Latvia, and Spīgana tradition starts 1 hour from here in northern Latvia, bordering Estonia. So we have 3 traditions, and all of them have slime molds as a part of this tradition. And in Dragana tradition, the most popular designation is witch's vomit. Then in Laime tradition, it is witch's spittle, and in Spīgana tradition, it is witch's shit. So you see that according to the tradition, these vernacular names can change. That's the situation, the map of recording the texts I have used in my paper. And as you can see, so this is the Spīgana tradition. I especially left Tartu here so that you can orientate yourselves. And this is Laime tradition area, and the rest is like Ragana tradition. It is quite obvious that there is not only one natural thing under this, which is vomit and spittle and shit thing, because I have read these legends and beliefs quite often describe these creatures, and sometimes it's quite obvious that it is not like a slime mold. It is rather I'm sure some of you have seen these spittle bugs, maybe not the bugs themselves, but spittle made by these bugs. So this is most probably the natural background of the witch's spittle, because it really looks like a spittle. Then some authors write that this witch's vomit and witch's shit, it can be also some species of fungi. And then slime molds is as the third interpretation of these vernacular terms, if we want to find some natural background of it. And as far as I have found, it is Professor Blumenthal's in 1928 who for the first time mentions that witch's vomit is related in some way to slime molds. And some years later, in 1936, it is another professor, Rumba, who already mentions a specific genera. This is genera, yeah. This is not species. This is genera. of slime molds, fuligo, so which is now called witch's butter in Latvian. So you see this connection between slime molds and witch's vomit is almost a century old already, and I have tried to look at this material also from my point of view. As my free time, as I say, I'm a witches hunter. At my free time, I'm a species hunter. It started with bird watching, just try to find as many birds as you can, and then somehow it also turned that slime molds became interesting for me. And as I have seen a lot of them in my hometown, so I feel in these folklore texts when they speak about slime molds. And if we analyze the substrate of texts mentioned where these slime molds are found by people, and these are usually wooden buildings, as you can see here, but also wooden fences, wooden bowls, tools, also on pasture and fields. They are found on trees, on tree stumps, trunks, on grass, and also on stones. So you see that these all are places where slime molds are possible. And if we just look at the houses, traditional houses in which people lived, everything was made of wood at that time, and it didn't look as good as in the open air ethnographic open air museum where these houses are maintained. Usually they could be also in a bad condition, so it means rotting wood and so on. So a good place for slime molds to grow. If we just take another characteristic thing, the color of slime mold, of which is vomit mentioned in the texts, it is quite often it is white, but most often it is yellow. And the yellow thing is, I think, very important in this context, because I will tell you about witches tradition a little bit more in detail in the following minutes. But it very resembles the color of the butter. So I think people automatically connected these things. If they see like something fully go septic on their house, it wasn't there yesterday, and now it is there today. It appears very unexpectedly, and this is very characteristic for slime molds because they develop quite fast. And this was very suspicious to people, of course, and they suspected it cannot be something good. It should be something bad. And well, if you see something like this, of course, if you don't know what it is, you are suspicious about it. And so people were suspicious about it, and they tried to destroy these things. I hope you will not make me go away after my presentation, because I wanted to call it at the beginning 10 best practices how to destroy myxomycetes, yes. But what Latvians did, they mostly used fire. They burned down these slime molds. And the second thing was they put it somewhere in some object, in a bottle, in a box, and hanged it somewhere. Usually they try to hang it in a chimney so that smoke goes up and dries it, because they believe that if you take and capture this witch's vomit, you also capture the witch's spirit. And if you are smoking this spirit, the witch is suffering a lot. And usually after these, believe me or not, after these practices, the body of the witch ran to your house and asked for forgiveness and so on and so on. So you can read all the rest of these magic practices. It's beating, stabbing, smashing, shooting, and so on, digging into the ground. And there are so many ways to destroy a slime mold. But they still are found in Latvia, as you will hear in Julita's paper next to me. If we try to attribute it to one of the... By the way, how much time do I have? Is it over? Is my time over?
Yeah, so speak fast.
Okay. So yes, important thing about this, as there are three layers of witchcraft beliefs in Latvia, with the diabolic witches being the most recent one since the witchcraft period. The witches' vomit belief layer comes from the milk witches tradition, which is like the middle tradition, and it can be dated so that it existed at least before the 16th century. We don't have the written sources, but there are, well, my own research is related to the whole milk witches tradition, and it can be dated. So also this slime mold witch vomit thing is quite old. That we can, although I mentioned at the beginning that it has been, the first records are only 200 years old. The tradition is much older itself. And it was very important part. This is like the last concluding thing. The whole idea of the tradition was that a person is able to release its soul by some magic means. The soul is flying in a form of a shooting star. So this is how they interpreted shooting stars. It is stealing milk. And after stealing milk, it left some signs of it. Usually it was like a witch's vomit or witch's shit. And if people found this shit or vomit or so on, it could be used against the witch, and in the ways I told you about before. So the tradition itself, it offered you like explanations of some suspicious or unknown things, and at the same time it gave you like these magic practices as a tool to protect yourself against the evil of the witch. And yeah, good thanks to our ancestors, they didn't destroy all the slime molds in Latvia. I'm giving floor to Julita. I think my time for questions is over. So thanks for your attention.
Thanks, that was actually really fascinating. But are there any questions?
Hello. In Norway, we're not as superstitious as Latvians. So in Norway, we believe in trolls rather than witches. So Fuligo septica actually has 5 different traditional names in Norway. Very similar in many ways. The first part is generally something with trolls or the devil, or even the cuckoo for some reason. Yeah, and then the last part is, as you said, butter, puke, spittle, and shit. And they sound pretty interesting. Trollsmør, trollkattspyd, trollkjerringspyd, pukeskit, and gaukespyd. That's the Norwegian names for trollsmør, for Fuligo septica. The histories are all the same. Yeah, it's very similar.
Thanks.